And here, my lovely viewers, is where I am faced with a conundrum. I am presented with 3 movies that I want to talk about in the same week: God's Not Dead, Frank, and Godzilla. I was originally going to talk about God's Not Dead because its brand of hilarious religious propaganda gives me a lot of good material, and I also wanted to review Godzilla because a Godzilla movie advertising itself as starring Bryan Cranston and, you know, Godzilla, and then not actually delivering on having either of those things in substantial amounts kind of pissed me off. I will probably end up reviewing both of these films in a week where there's jack shit to talk about, but just as I was about to start writing my reviews of Film is Dead and Shitzilla, I managed to catch the last screening of Frank at the cinema, and the fact that I had to travel 45 minutes to see this fucking movie because it never played at the massive cinema 10 minutes away is something that makes me want to commit a ritualistic suicide dedicated to it just so more people will end up seeing it just out of curiosity. That pretty much gives away my whole opinion of Frank right there, but let's at least pretend I have something more to say here. John is a struggling songwriter who just can't seem to write songs. No, I don't mean he lacks inspiration, I mean he's just talentless. He can't write worth shit, but never seems to pick up on this, being the insecure, pretentious douchebag that he is. By a chance encounter, he becomes a new keyboardist for the band but fuck it, and goes to the remote island retreat to record their eccentric and, from the sounds of it, fucking awesome album. The titular Frank is the band's lead singer, and he always wears and never takes off, even in the shower, his giant fake head. It's clear Frank has some serious talent, and John begins to feel overshadowed. Because of his constant online presence and documenting all of the album's mental recording process, the band and John are given a slot at South by Southwest. I won't tell you what happens from then on, as to do that would be a disservice to the film, and this is not the kind of film I want to disservice. The problem I face when reviewing Frank is that, as a critic, I'm supposed to come up with something negative to say about anything I review simply to be fair. There's precious few films out there that I can call truly flawless, and when I say flawless, I mean the nitpicky criticisms don't affect the film even in the slightest, but quite honestly, Frank is one to add to the list. I know, I wasn't expecting this either. You never do. You never can expect a film to be one of your new favourites, but here it is, bright and clear. Frank is one of those precious few flawless movies. Now let's start off with what the film is clearly advertising the most: the comedy. The comedy in Frank is pitch perfect, making me laugh and cringe at the same time, not seeing perfected to this level since the days of Malcolm in the Middle. Is Frank the funniest movie I've ever seen? No, it isn't. In Bruges still holds that particular torch, but Frank makes a damn good case for itself. The comedy on its own isn't the thing that makes me love Frank, though. It's the balance of comedy and drama that makes it work so well, and again, I haven't seen it done this well since In Bruges. Combining hilarious set pieces like the scene involving scattering a friend's ashes and Frank writing his most likeable song in the world, it all culminates in a bittersweet conclusion that's ambiguous yet satisfying, kind of like Old Boy if it had more rock music and less incest. The final scene was the best to me, bringing out the saddest fucking musical number I have ever heard in my life and almost bringing me to tears. I didn't, of course, being the pinnacle of masculinity and machismo that I am, but it does show that Frank has an emotional core no matter how many jokes it may make at the expense of its characters. Frank is actually based on a real life guy, Chris Seavey, who donned a very, very similar looking fake head in his persona, Frank Sidebottom. He made comedy novelty records and had a very distinctive northern twang in his voice that's endearing for about 30 seconds before it gets ear-splittingly irritating. I've heard Frank Sidebottom is something you either get or you don't, and I really don't. Needless to say, apart from the first name in the head, Frank the movie has little, if anything, to do with Frank Sidebottom the persona, and to be honest, I think it works in his favour. The screenwriter actually is John in the movie, and it's somewhat based on his experiences with Seavey in his punk, in air quotes, band The Freshies. They're also okay, nothing to really write home about. Wow, I'm really digressing, let's get back on topic. Frank is a film that utterly blindsided me and came out of nowhere to instantly blast into my favourite films of all time. Is it the number one? I don't know, I'll have to see it again to really figure that out, but for now, let's just say it's very high near the top. All I can say is that Frank is underrated and underseen, and that just makes me sadder than basically anything in the world ever. If Frank is playing near you, you owe it to yourself to go see it, even if you don't like it as much as I did, as it's so unique and different that it's worth seeing for the novelty alone. Now, to play us out, the most likeable song in the world!
Coca-Cola, lipstick ring, go dance all night, kiss me, just kiss me, Nefertiti.